Hey everyone, Ekman here with another video, and we are finally here at the release of EB01, and to celebrate, I dropped all of my deck lists that I've been working on in the last couple weeks. They're just all of them updated for the EB01 meta. Some of them are just like meta decks that just need a generic build as is, such as like Sakazuki, Katakuri, and Moria, but I did want to just have like this good resource for you guys to just have, you know, some handy dandy deck lists to look into and test and everything else. So a couple of things before we get started. First, if you guys want any of these, they're all on my website. They also can be linked on my deck builder too. If you go to there, you can see like EB01 deck list at the top there, which is really great. Also, I do have my first EB01 tournament starting next Tuesday, so you guys can sign up for that right now. We have just under 40 spots open, and should be a good time, so you can check that out, linked in the description. And also to celebrate, I've done a couple of live streams, and so I did some like mega testing ones where I just did a variety of testing off a lot of different leaders. So I made both of those free to watch on my YouTube, which is going to be linked to the description as well, so you guys can check that out. Also, if you guys want just some more generic testing for the EB01 format, one of them was on the sim, and then the other one was with Nico here in person too. So make sure to check both of those out. But jumping on into it, we're going to look at our new leaders. I did make videos separately for each one of them. We're going to look at them. We're going to look at some starter 13 leaders, and then just a couple kind of atypical leaders that I feel like need a bit of explanation. So we're not going to go over all 20 lists that I have here, but we're going to go over a good amount of them. So jumping on into it there, we're going to start with our EB01. So again, I've made videos going over all of these as well individually, but I think the Odin and all of them I think has a good chance to be relevant. This list is a bit cheesy compared to the others I've seen, but kind of the big deal about it is that we are playing like the Mihawk combo, so we can use this card to just play out a card for free, which could be like a Kid and Killer, could be an Arlong, which I find kind of useful, especially like the Trigger Off Life could be nice too, and then also the Ryuma, which is just another like Wano card. It's our only removal right now, which is okay just for keeping pace against stuff like Ekomori, which is really good. And just kind of the general idea. So we want to play our 5-drops, our Yamato, our Genjuro, and Izo, just to be able to get value from our Odin. And then our 8-drop Odin is sometimes our win condition if it's able to stay on the board and can commit. So nothing too crazy. I think the biggest thing about Odin is that a lot of its effect depend on building a board, and in a meta right now that so many decks are really good at demolishing your board, it can be kind of rough. But in general, like when this deck goes off, it feels really fun, it feels very strong, and having like 2 different copies of 5/7s that just generically gain a lot of value, the Izo being able to like turn anything into a 2k counter is very strong, and then the Dendro being able to like just get so much extra Dawn later into the game, so you can kind of like swarm the board if you can. So I like the deck a lot, and here is this one. And then next up we have Hannibal, which I still don't know what my preferred build of this one. This is kind of like the safe build where we have like the low end. You do have to kind of run like your Dominoes and your Prince Bellet. Being able to get your early ramp consistently is very strong. And then this is more kind of like the purple of the Jailer Beast package, which I think this one's fine, like being able to play Sadie for 3, then being able to play one of your Jailer Beast out and then bounce the Sadie back to hand at the end of turn to get your ramp feels good. I think the only thing with this deck and a lot of like purple decks in general, like you have all this good ramp to get up to high numbers, but then you really don't have a card to play, right? Like it's been like a year and a half and 10, Kaido from the star deck, it's still the best card to ramp to generically, right? A lot of decks that don't have like a big boss monster like Yellow Purple Croc that has their big 8-drop or something like that, it's just like not worth the ramp a lot of the time. So that's kind of like the issue I've been seeing with it. I've been playing a lot of Gum Gum Champion Rifle. I think this card's pretty good. It's a little bit cheesy once your opponent kind of recognizes this is a card that can come out. It does a lot of good as well. Hannibal also just, I mean, all 3 of these leaders from EB01, I think just have a really like open like deck building, because obviously in this one we kind of bid more of the purple. You can definitely go more of the blue side as well, running more of like the 7-drop Emporio and 6-drop Luffy. I think that's really helpful for it, and especially since the 6-drop Inazuma is such a strong card too. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we go over Emporio, but generically I think this deck is just good at ramping up. So like Mihawk and like Borsalino, since we ramp so much, if you play these on curve, you're able to bottom deck whatever they just played pretty consistently, unless they also ramp. So they're both kind of worth getting to as well. It's just kind of getting there in the first place. So I think maybe like if you want to like just drop down to Mihawk, like 4 copies of it, you can maybe get rid of the Kaidos. But Kaidos having Rush, being able to have that immediate action is very good too. And then lastly, like the impel down stage, I think this is pretty good. This is the only card to like generically find other impel down stuff, and the only like this is good for like early game finding some pieces and turning some cards that are maybe bricks into non-bricks. I think it's very helpful. So I really wish this card was impel down, because clearly he is impel down right now, but it's fine. Don't worry about it. So this is the Hannibal list I've been working with. And then next up we have our Kyros. And my big issue with Kyros is that we just never really got any new cards for it, right? Like we have this new leader in the EBO set, and like, cool. You can run some more of the Dressrosa stuff if you want to, but I don't feel like it really fits the leader as much as it does Rebecca. So you can do that if you want, but like the only good card is Viola, specifically because it does let us reset our life, which means that we can use our leader effect again, since we are based on like getting the pop of a 0. You have to flip the life over, so you have to flip it back to be able to use the effect again. So other than that, this deck is like very strong at times, but I will say that it's just a yellow version of Sakozuki that's less consistent, especially since we still like Moria still wins games if we play this on curve, but we don't have as many ways to set up cards into our trash to make that happen. So that's kind of a bit rough for the deck, but otherwise that's good. Big Mom on curve is still a very good card too. So there's a lot of Elite O combos you can do, especially with Moria, because you can do like play Shirahoshi as a blocker, and then you can play Helmeppo as that, so you can give something -7 pretty quickly with your Moria and have a blocker out, which is very good. Obviously, like Rebecca and Nahina still works with Helmeppo too, so that also is very strong if you have it set up. And then Great Eruption Ice Age, like Ice Age, use it for 1, flip the card face up, then you have just a really good way to get rid of your opponent's like 5 costs. So it's really interesting. I could definitely see there's like a list of Kyros that stands out above them. I don't know if this is the one, but there's just a lot of great removal that he has access to that's, you know, moderately cheap, and it's just kind of being able to see your pieces more consistently. Again, like Gecko with this deck, if you're able to set up your trash, feels great. You just get so much removal. Your opponent really can't do anything about it, and you're just very more aggressive than Sakozuki in a lot of ways too. So anyways, this is the Kyros leader, and again, these are the 3, and I will say I did make a tier list video the other day too. I think all these leaders are just on that neat kind of power level where they do have some really unique things, and like specifically Odin, like finally having a red-green Wano Country leader is cool, because they've been just splitting between the 2 for so long, but they're not super duper viable. I don't really expect any 3 of them to at least immediately hit the scene and consistently top. So anyways, we do get a lot of other support cards though, and the other one is like Star Deck 13, which all 3 of these leaders kind of got some support too with it, just because of which is cool, because like I like where they like drop a Star Deck and then in between sets, and then like the set afterwards also supports it. So I think that's good, and I think all of them are getting support also in OP07, which is nice. Sabo's been the one that's been really fun to run. I had like more of a Straw Hat variant earlier, so some big changes that I would say for this one is one Flampe. I think a lot of yellow decks are going to be playing this playing this card specifically. Being able to draw 1 from life and then also draw 1 is great. So like it's a draw 2 for 1. We really kind of care sometimes for our life to be 2 or less, so we can have our ace be rush heavy, which is good. There's also some times where if they don't attack us, then they leave a rush card in our life. We play a Flampe, draw 2, and then we play a rush card again. So that's very good. We are playing like the Garp. We're playing 4 copies of the 2-drop Ace, because I feel like this one's a little bit stronger because we are like being able to get Rush again, and like the immediacy. Like we don't have to put any Dawn into that. We're playing a couple copies of Luffy 2-drop. This one is not as good as Ace. Like the Luffy you play off it is good to finish the game, but I do think there's some issues with it too. And then also 3 of the 2 costs, because it can be found off the Garp. And if we need to heal, we can use this effect by just putting 2 Dawn underneath it. Makes it a 7k. So it's a 7k very quickly that we can put into our life, which is strong too. So other than that, we do playing the Neko, the Kikonojo, the Sanji, and Satori to be able to play from life, so we get some more advantage from that one. Obviously, Kikonojo and Neko Mamushi, if we put it back into our life, we get to play it again for free, so that's very strong. And then Kid and Killer, which you guys are going to see a lot of this. Pretty much every red deck's going to be running this in some capacity. Being able to have Rush. And then the nice thing about this thing too is that if your opponent's at 2 or less life, this is a 4-drop 7k with Rush immediately, which means that you don't even have to put any more Dawn on it to be able to get its effect. So you can do some fun things where you play Kid and Killer attack with it. And then like in late game, like the issue with Sabo too is that we do have this effect where we give something else plus 2k until the start of our next turn. And most of the time we just don't get to do that because we only have one card on the board. So being able for 10, play Kid Killer, attack 7, then play something like Zoro, our ace for additional 3 or 5. And then for 1 means that we can then, have our 6k leader attack, and then 9k with ace are strong, like pretty much the same 9k with Zoro if we put our Dawn on it. So I think that's strong with Kid and Killer. Just makes some of the combos a little bit easier to obtain. Obviously, you can also do ace and Zoro too, so that's strong. Luffy's a little bit expensive to do, but he is a good finisher, so he's kind of worth it. But here's Sabo. Again, really like the deck, and some decks can just, if they like, Mori is just such a rough matchup for this deck because it's 5 life. That extra life makes it harder for us to not only just do 1 more damage, but get them in range for Neko and Kikunocha to be free to play. But otherwise, I think the deck is really strong and obnoxious at times. So there you go. Next up, we have Ace, which is currently my least favorite card leader of the 3, but I'm very sure that down the line there's some really good support for it. I don't really have much more to say, like a lot to say about this guy. I do like playing the deck in the idea that we are like healing as more like defensive in that kind of way and get to the later game. So ways we can do that is that, so this Dawn times 2, you can look at top 5, put a character cost of 5 to top your life face up, and then at the end of turn we trash cards. So I do like playing Viola in this deck, so we can, for 2, heal a card, and then we can put Viola, and then we from there are able to flip it face down. So just in like some scenarios where we hit something that we don't have like the 2-drop boy with it, we can heal it, and then if we are able to draw it later, we're able to do it, which is really strong. We also have like Hiyori, which pretty much does the same thing, but we can put stuff like Gravity Blade or 200 million volts into our life. And we also have like the 6-drop Newgate, which is like fine for what it is. And so if we rearrange our life too, so we can use it, so we put 2 underneath our ace, attack into it, put a card to the top of our life, and then we put another card, and then we rearrange everything and put the face-up card back to the top of our deck, if that makes sense. So this will also let us heal. It can make sure that we put our 200 million volts to the bottom, and I think that can be very strong for the deck too. So I don't have much more to say about this. That's also why we're playing Shirahoshi at 5, so our 2 copies, because we can put into our life off a lot of different ways and be able to get the effect off, which is cool. And I think the only thing I'd say about Ace moving forward is that you kind of have to play each one of these because you don't really have a lot of variance in 5-drops for yellow and blue. It's really just these guys for right now. But down the line, we're going to get a lot more aces that are also blue, which I think is going to be strong for us. And I think that there are some different builds down the line. We just don't have it right now. So, but we'll see what he looks like. I think this deck is okay for what it is. Blue has like a lot of good option cards for the game right now, and it really helps the deck out too. So there we go. All right, from Starter Deck 13, we're going to go into our Crocodiles. Oh wait, sorry, we got one more. We got Luffy. Sorry, how could I forget about Luffy? So this maybe I'm forgetting about it because he's kind of like the most understood and generic. He's the one that takes advantage of the archetype, I think, the most right now, which is very strong. He was in the Flampe waiting room for quite a bit. I think that this was such a good card for us because people who figure out that Luffy wants to go down to 0 life very quickly will not make you go down to 0 life very quickly. So being able to get rewarded for our opponent not doing that is strong with this Flampe. I also, my one tech ad is the Thunderbolt. I really do like this card in it. You just pay for 2, you trash a life, but you get rid of an opponent's card. And late game, like one, it could also be in life, but late game also, Sabo's really good at filtering out of our hand. So generically, Sabo's very good at making sure that we don't have any dead cards in hand at the end of our game, because when we don't run a lot of them, and then we can get that cycle. So I think that's just very strong for us and helps us out quite a bit for the deck. So I do like the Thunderbolt. It's like an alternative, just like card to lose a life. Obviously, Luffy and 5-drop Sabo, the yellow one, are good at like cycling our life too and getting some advantage from it. But in general, I don't know. This deck is it's a little bit of solitaire, but like fun solitaire right now because it's newer. There are some kind of like good and bad matchups with it. I'm not sold that it's like tier 1 quite yet, just because I think Sakazuki gets rid of it very easily. And then also Red Purple Law has a really good matchup against it too. but we'll just kind of see what that looks like down the road. But I do like the idea of it. It's been fun to learn this one, and definitely the add of Flampe helps the deck a lot in this new format. So this is the build for Luffy, and now we're done with our Star Deck 13 Leaders. So we're going to jump into just some kind of variety ones that I think are just really neat. Maybe not very competitive, but I had a lot of fun testing and brewing them, and they're just fun. They're just fun decks. So take that as it is. So going into it, we're going to start with our crocodiles. We got purple, yellow, and blue purple croc. Purple yellow is the one I prefer. I'll be honest. I was kind of talked into doing some blue purple testing, and I had an okay time with that crocodile too. But I still prefer this one. The generic reason we like this one right now is Okama Way, which is just such a good card. So counter Dawn -1 if your leader has Brokeworks and is type. Choose one of your characters. It becomes the target of the attack. So reading that outright, it's a little bit unassuming like how good that is. But the reason it's so good is because you can have that redirect into whenever, like it just means that if your opponent like goes for game, puts like 10 Dawn and the leader attacks, you can use a Okama Way to just redirect it, which is very strong. Especially if we have Kikunojo out, this just means that you not only like get the redirection, but then you get the heal because you KO this, which is very good. So that's strong for us. Obviously, it's a yellow card, so we can play that pretty easily too. The other thing about this is that this deck revolves so much around its 8 cost, how it uses its Dawn -1 on its when opponent's attacking to be able to draw 1, trash 1. Also, that means with the leader effect, we get a Dawn back to active, so we have just Dawn ready for our knockabout arrows, our Thors. We also have Miss Wednesday, which is a new add, being able to ramp. This pretty much ramps 1 and untaps 2. For it, so if you have no Dawn open, you use this effect. You get 1 back by its own effect, and then 1 from your leader effect. It's also on opponent's attack, but not when blocking. So you can just have this out, and then they could attack. Use the effect to get the Dawn back. But you don't have to block with it, which is strong. So I think that helps the deck out too, and it's just a really good card. So the only issue is that it gets removed easily. So I think it's our second best ramper in the game, which Mr. 2 Bond Clay is so good. You see so many decks kind of put this in, like so many purple decks are just putting this in because it's so good at ramping. The fact that like if your opponent doesn't have like hard removal, this can sometimes like swing 7k for free. The fact that it just, anything that's rested, you can attack into it and like you at least tie with it is very good. And you get the Dawn in active too. So there are some scenarios where that makes a big difference. So obviously Red Purple Law has been taking advantage of this card too. You're going to probably see this pretty often among a lot of other decks, but he's just in a good spot. So anyways, just kind of like the deck. This is one of my favorite. I've done a lot of testing with this one personally. Sometimes you just get bricked up because you have to run a lot of bricks in it. But in general, I think the deck is in a really good spot. So here is the yellow purple and going to the blue purple. Kind of same idea because a lot of the Brokework purple stuff works for this leader too, which is cool. The big difference too is so like Mr. 2 Bond Clay, there's some scenarios where, you know, if you're at 4 Dawn, you go to 5, you put a Dawn underneath it, underneath your leader to attack 6k. And then you have like your free Dawn for Jet Gatling and Gum Rain. So I think that's strong. I might want to put Miss Wednesday into the deck because you do get like a free, you don't get the ramp with her, but you do get like the free untap, which is important for turns like Blue Purple Croc has a lot of issues with making sure you have enough Dawn to do the plays that you want to do. So because of that, I find that you're just having some issues with doing that consistently. So being able to have the Miss Wednesday means that you lose the Dawn, you gain it back, so you have 1 open for something like Desert Spot or Okama Way. So that's strong. We are playing the Useless Kid Queen combo because we need a lot of card draw, are more defensive in this comparatively. Missile Sunday 3-drop is such a good card, being able to be a blocker but also get a event card on KO, so that could be like something to help you on the defense this turn, or it could be like a 3000 World to remove something next turn. I think the card is very good. We're playing 3000 Worlds, Gum Red Rock, and Gravity Blade. I don't know which one's better, to be honest, so I'm just running all 3. You can just maybe just bump it down to just Gravity Blade and Red Rock, 3 copies of each, but I think that's how it is. Okama Way, you can probably drop down to 3 if you want to, since we're not as good as like the Purple Yellow Croc with that card, but it also has triggered Dawn -1 draw too, which is such a good trigger, especially in Yellow Purple Croc too. So I don't really have much more to say about this one. This one's been fun, surprisingly. I still think Yellow Purple's better than it, but it's definitely worth retesting this if you haven't with all the new cards we get from it. So There we go for our crocodiles. We have a couple more. If we're talking about purple, we're going to talk about Iceburg real quick. I think this deck is actually pretty strong in a lot of ways. My personal kind of spin on it is I've been playing the 6-7 Luffy's because we do have so many 5-drops that we could be playing right now. And the fact that we just need some kind of an immediate advantage for attacking, since we are Iceburg, we can't attack with our leader, but being able to use this guy has been really, really strong. For this, again, since we have so many 5-drops. We can also do some things where, we use Luffy, use it to discard like a Khalifa, and then we can get it back with like Bluno kind of thing. So, because and there's just like the sequencing for this one took a little bit, and like what we value took a little bit for me to understand. You really don't need your Vinsmoke Reiju early game. You just need it kind of late game to refill your hand, especially since Khalifa just draws 2 any 4 cost or less characters, so being able to get a Reiju and a 2k off for Khalifa or Kamazo is very strong. So early game, you just want to be kind of defensive and make sure that you have stuff that's in your trash, so when you use your Blunos or your Khalifas, you get the value from it too. So I think that's important. One big thing to know is that Bluno is not Gallery Gus, so you cannot play it off your leader for free. You can only you can play everything else, but since it's only Water 7, it's searchable off the Kokoro, but you can't play it otherwise. And then I think the card is good at like being able to just play a 5 cost from your trash is great, which means you can also play with the poly, and if you have the stuff for it, you can get like the pop of something. And it has to be a Water 7 character, so you can't play like Captain Kidd or Queen, but the other cards that we have are great because you can get like Khalifa, which then like additionally draws you more cards. And then obviously we're a purple deck that ramps, so 9-drop Kaido are still one of our better cards. And if we're able to hit this on the board on curve very quickly, we can get a lot of advantage for it too. So this one's been a lot of fun. I think it might be. I may be like coping a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised if Iceburg gets like a top in the next couple of weeks. But we'll see if that happens. But he's definitely has a lot of new tools, and just with purple in general getting a lot of new tools, and then Bluno and the 5-drop Khalifa again are just very strong cards for it. So there is the build on that one. Next up, we have Emporio, and this one's been a bit of a surprise hit for me. Maybe it's, and a lot of my testing has not been like on a ranked server or like super serious, so there's a chance that this is just bad against good players kind of thing, but this has been a lot of fun to play, especially with some new combos. Inazuma specifically is just a very, very strong card for the deck. End of turn, if you have 2 or less cards in your hand, you get to draw 2. So you can do some combos. If you end your turn with 0 in hand, your leader draws 2, and then Inazuma draws 2. So you draw 4 cards at the end of your turn, which is a little bit ridiculous. It can also be played off your Emporio, which is good. So Emporio draws you up to 2, and then you use Inazuma. But also just means that you can, like, on curve, if you specifically want to go second this list, which I think you do, you can just play Luffy for 6, bounce back whatever they just played to their hand, and knowing that next turn you can do Emporio Inazuma to get your hand size back, and then also have 2 cards to discard for Luffy to use the effect again, and then like you have 3 7Ks on the board by turn 8, which is very good. So I think that's strong. It helps the deck out a lot. We're also playing New Kama Land, which I haven't seen a lot of people run. This just felt like the best card in the deck a lot of the times. If you're able to set it up early, just means that you get the additional cycle and you really don't care about the -1 it goes in hand size, because we're so different with how we use cards in our hands. So I've won a lot of games at 5 life with this deck too, because we're so defensive early times. I also like pudding is very obnoxious in this. There's just some times where you have to you can use Luffy, like put like all of your Dawn underneath it, right? Puts 4 or 6 Dawn underneath it, make it like a 13k double, attack with it, your opponent has to take 2 life, and then you play your pudding, and then they go back down to 5. It's very oppressive when it works out, and I think it's worth the combo. And then Champion Rifle, we're playing 2 copies. You can maybe find a room for 3rd if you like, since we do care about going down to 1. And we have like a little bit more like spot removal comparatively, which means like sometimes it just hits something that's has to be like a higher cost card, which is good. So other than that, I think the deck is great. It's a lot of fun, and I've been having a lot of fun with the deck. It's been very the combos are really neat and unique for it. So there it is there. Next up, we have Enel. Enel's, in my opinion, and maybe this is my own opinion, I haven't really found it being significantly stronger in EB01 compared to OP06. I think it still has some of the same issues with it, where that there are like you are just kind of have like clunky hand syndrome with having to run like your Linlins, your Katakuris, your Yamatos. This can also be Enel, and I will mention that there are a lot of different builds of Enel. There's more of a rush build, which runs all the new rush cards. So we have like the Ace 5-drop, we have like the 7-drop Enel, and then we also have the new event that lets you play Enel from hand or trash for 4 as long as you go down to 1 life. So I think there are different builds. This is not the only way to build this guy. But like when this one works, it's great. But when it doesn't, it just, you have, again, all your cards in your hand and nothing really to do with them. I think the new ad for this one, Shirahoshi, is great too. It's just a blocker. You play it early. And you can bump it up to 4 copies if you want. But just means that unless they're like a blue deck that can bottom deck, it's going to be like a guaranteed blocker in a lot of scenarios, and they don't never really want to KO it, which is great. We also have Flampe, again, being able to get down to 1 life easier and get reward for it is really nice. And then it's just like another card that we can put back to our life with Katakuri too. And then I think that's really it. Like, not a lot of new cards. If you have the tempo for it, and you're able to get some good Yamato value, and that's like the other thing too. Like sometimes like Flampe, you can go down to 1 life, draw the card, and then use Yamato, and then you get the removal, and then you get the heal again, which you were going to get anyway. You weren't going to get if your opponent leaves you at 2 life. So I think the Flampe is very great for that. And then obviously, Raigo having unconditional removal like this is fantastic. We're going to be down to 1 life pretty close anyways, so that's very strong. And like the trigger off life, if you hit in like the mid to early game, it pops whatever you want, which is good too. So I don't really have much more to say about this deck. I think people are going to be testing it. I don't think it's going to be as good as people are expecting until OP07, or at least not as good as I was thinking it was going to be until OP07, but that is the list there for me. Next up, we have Red Purple Law. This deck, I think, is going to be probably the strongest deck that we get from EB01, and I did have like an entire play testing session with it. I also think it's a deck that has enough tech cards that you're going to see a lot of minor changes throughout the next couple weeks, and I don't think there's going to be a perfect 50 at any time, right? It's going to change every week. It's going to kind of change with the meta, with just how many techs we have and different ways we can play this build generically. But the nice cards that we got were Bond Clay, very good, as we said before. Shiraya is just like a really obnoxious blocker. If we're able to remove our opponent's board, we can just not take damage by blocking their leader attack and then using a 1K, which is great. And then also Kitten Killer is such a good win condition for us too. So I think all of that's been very strong for the deck. Gordon and Raise Max in the deck too, being able to get some good removals on 6Ks is strong. And yeah, this is the deck that I think is finally gonna kind of pay off. I think that there are a lot of scenarios that you can like just make it so they lose resources and they aren't able to keep up. But again, Kitten Killer is such a good card for finishing the game. It is very strong in a lot of ways. Just being able to, for free, play a 7K and then get your 7K rush is just so good. So you probably have your own builds. I'm probably going to see comments like, why are you not running this card? Why are you running this card? And generically, it's because I think everyone's build for Red Purple Law is going to be very personal because of how much space the deck has and how many tech options. And we're going to have to see what that looks like for everyone else. But I don't expect this to be like, how Sakazuki has pretty much like 2 minor build differences with the stage build or not. And a lot of like Katakuris and Memorialists are looking very similar. I don't think that's going to be the case with Law. I think a lot of people are going to make their own personal tech choices. And I think that's really neat to see. So we'll see what that looks like. And then lastly, we have Uta. Uta's pretty straightforward, but I do want to mention it. I do think it's great in this meta. We do have 2 different cards we got added. The 2-drop Luno, which is great for playing the 8-drop Useless Kid build, which this build I think is the one that's preferred because you are very good at having like a large hand size, and like Useless Kid after playing like 7-drop Luffy the previous turn is very strong, and then it's able to plop down either a Bluno or it's able to drop down an Uta blocker or a Bartholomew too. I will say if you don't have the Barts, you don't have to play him, and some people say that Bluno is just strictly better than it, so I think that's helpful for you. But in general, like the deck kind of does build itself, which is fine, but I think that there's just a lot of strength in a build like this, which we're only playing 8 cards that aren't film. We have our Mihawk, which can still do the Mihawk, Brook, Nami combo, which is still strong. And the deck is just in a good spot right now. So I don't really have a lot to say about this one, but I am excited to see Uta do well as well. So anyways, that's going to be the video for us. We did kind of talk for like 30 minutes. So if you made it this far, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And you haven't liked and subscribed the video, go for it, I guess. Again, make sure to check out my previous testings if you haven't already. And then also make sure to sign up for my event, which is next Tuesday. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.